And welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And we are going to tackle, me and Damien here, are going to tackle the Cabin Fever trilogy. Now, believe it or not, I've never seen any of them. So this was a first-time trilogy watch. I like to do that, actually. Take Halloween, for instance. When 2018 came out, and I heard about the trilogy, I literally waited until all three of them had been out, and I purchased the Blu-rays for all three of them before I could sit down and watch them. So, I don't know, I like doing that. I don't know why. It's just fun to me to be able to first time watch all of them at the same time. It's a cool little thing that I do, and very weird, like so many other things that I do. So now we are going to talk about Cabin Fever. This is the unrated director's Blu-ray of the original Cabin Fever. I would get the reboot, but it's so damn expensive, and it's so hated that expensive plus hated, cheap and hated, I'll give it a try. Expensive and hated, it's a little bit more difficult. I'd have to find somewhere to watch it first to see. But yes, we are going to talk about the unrated director's cut of Cabin Fever. Like I said, this was a first time watch for me. It was released in 2002, directed by Eli Roth, written by Eli Roth and Randy Pearlstein, and it stars Jordan Ladd, Ryder Strong, and James DeBello. It really is, because International Movie Database says so, which means it has to be true, just like Wikipedia. So, the movie opens up. We are introduced to the woods, and we see Hermit Henry, who's coming back with some rabbits that he's killed, and he sees his dead dog laying there. I immediately thought that scene was kind of funny, because I'm like, why are you trying to get a dog to sit up and notice the dead rabbit that you keep waving in front of its nose when anybody can see that dog is dead, right? Well, he's mangy, his dog's mangy, so maybe it just didn't occur to him. But I could tell the dog was dead, and I'm like, is the dog a zombie? Is it going to jump up? Because it is certainly dead. But, okay. So then he reaches down and he pulls it apart, and it's like, oh, it's the thing. We are then introduced to our group, our pretty people in peril. Well, most of them anyway. Karen, Paul, Bert, Marcy, and Jeff. And they're going on a vacation to the cabin, as all of these movies do. They stop at a store where we are introduced to Pancake Boy, which I guess is a running joke about this movie. And that is this weird little boy with this long blonde hair. I thought it was a girl at first, but I don't know why I made that assumption since I'm a metalhead. But I did. And it ends up biting Jeff. We meet the old man Cadwell, Mr. Cadwell, which is pretty funny. He's a pretty thing. I wrote, I hate Bert. So, we're barely 10 minutes into this movie, and I cannot express to you how much I hate Bert. I can't stand that dude. He is everything that I hate. And so I thought it was unusual to develop such an intense hatred so early in a movie. We're only at the store. If you've seen this movie, we're only at the grocery store. It's been fucking 10 minutes, and I want to kill him. I can't stand him. He's just everything that I hate. So, they get settled into the cabin. Bert ends up nearly shooting Henry, who is sick and needs help, but he doesn't even bother to tell the others when he gets back to the cabin about the encounter. We have some cool campfire stories, and we meet Grim, or Justin, which is Eli Roth's little cameo appearance in his own movie. So we meet him. He has a tent about 20 minutes away, he says. He smokes a bunch of weed with them. The hermit shows up later on at the door, tries to get in. Bert is immediately hysterically freaking out. Another thing that I hated about him. And he won't let him in. He goes and tries to steal their car, where he vomits all over the SUV. And they end up going out there and trying to stop him. He ends up getting set on fire. They're like spraying bug spray in his face, stuff like that. He runs off into the woods. They all feel guilty about it. They, of course, can't leave now because the car's fucked, right? So, the next day, Marcy goes out to get help. Bert and Jeff also goes out. I hope his name is Bert. I've got it wrote Bert. Anyway. So they also go to help in like different directions. She gets on a little boat and goes across the lake, and they go walking. So they're all three of them are going to do that. We also then are shown the Hermit Henry. He's lying in the reservoir, and it shows us the pipes leading to the water supply, and then we see Karen drinking the water, and we're like, well, yes, I think we know how this is, happening. So we see Kelly drinking. Bert and Jeff find this hay farm with this crazy pig lady, which was kind of a funny scene, who tells them that she's got a radio, and while they're telling her the story about this hermit, they realize that it's some relative of hers, and she says it's her cousin. So they get spooked and run for no really apparent reason. I mean, they had already just told her a lie once they figured it out, so I really don't see why. I really didn't get that. But they take off and run. Marcy. Is there a Marcy? Yes, okay. It's my writing again, folks. Marcy is on the boat. She finds a lake house, but she runs into Bert and Jeff, who's already in there. And they can't find anyone. They can't find anything. So they all end up going back. Then we are introduced to Deputy Winston. He is a character. I really liked Deputy Winston. I didn't like his dialogue, but I liked some of his dialogue. Well, I'll go ahead and say it. This movie's dialogue is like way more juvenile than it needs to be, which was something that surprised me. Please keep in mind, as old as this movie is, I have never seen it. Yesterday, when I watched this trilogy, was the first time I have ever seen these three movies. So I found the dialogue like really, I know it's supposed to be funny and quippy and juvenile, but the juvenile level was so intensely high. The shit that they said was just, it made you hate them all pretty much. I think I hated everybody. Well, the other two guys, Jeff and Bert, I didn't really care for either one of them. And it was mostly because, you're sitting around, in real life, you're sitting around someone that just talks that shit. And you're just like, dude, is this what y'all talk about in the locker room? No wonder y'all never mind. So the dialogue is really juvenile. Of course, it might be because I sit on the other side of the fence. So hearing pussy talk for an hour and a half is just a little too much for me. So Deputy Winston, though, he is extremely funny. I really liked him. And he talks to Paul, which is a hilarious scene. Tells them he will send help in a tow truck. And they all, and then they all start trying to clean the truck. Grimm's dog, Justin's dog, is acting like really rabid now. And he comes back and starts menacing them. So that's pretty funny. They chase it off. We then notice that Karen is getting nauseous. Everybody, of course, wants to leave. And, of course, everybody's drinking the water, taking showers, taking baths in it. Bert tries to fix the car while Jeff guards against that rabid dog. I know his name was Dr. something, but I didn't write it down, so I can't remember it. Paul finds out that Karen is infected. Now, some of you out there at this moment might be going, really? Is that the way you're going to say it? That Paul finds out that Karen is infected? Yeah. Yes. That's exactly the way that I'm going to say it. Because that was fucking gross. He finds out that she is infected. Let's just say that he stuck his fingers on her thigh and it went into her thigh and he pulled out his hand and it was all bloody. And we're not going to talk about anything else. So Paul finds out that Karen is infected. Bert won't let her out of the room when he finds it out, doing his hysterical shit. They end up making the girl sleep on a mattress in the shed, which, considering, I think I would have to agree. All I know is I'm with Jeff, man. I ain't staying around this shit. Stay the fuck away from me, all of you. So they make her sleep in the shed, which is really interesting. Paul goes back to the lake for help, but is chased away when he goes back to that lake house because he's being a perv. So the people don't listen to him, and I'm like, man, y'all will just throw away everything for the kitty. What's up with the kitty? It's like it makes y'all all crazy or something. I don't know. It's fucked up. So he gets chased away. They're all extremely paranoid now and are infighting. The dog keeps trying to get into the shed where Karen is rotting. The next day, the car finally starts. They try to get rotten Karen, which is the way I keep writing her, to the car, but they can't. And Bert starts coughing and realizes he's infected. And so he takes off in the car by himself. Marcy and Paul stay with Karen. Jeff, he's like through with all of it. And he grabs a couple 6-packs of beer, which is the safest thing for him. He doesn't know that, but it is. And he just takes off walking in the woods. Like, I'm getting away from all you motherfuckers. So Bert does finally make it to the store, and he tells the owner where Dennis does these kung fu moves like Bruce Lee, and screams about pancakes. And I'm like, I think what Eli was trying to do was he wanted to bring a Deliverance flavor into it, but not as the villains, just as the crazy Deliverance people. I'm surprised the little boy didn't have a banjo. You know what I mean? But then again, we get that at the end credits, right? Yeah. So, the little boy bites him, and then the guy starts saying, "You've now infected my son." So it's like weird. And so Bert takes off, and they all start to, when he had first found out, I put crotch rot, because like he looked down there, and that was pretty gross. So Bert leaves in the car. He gets bitten by Dennis at the thing. The owner knows now, and him and 2 of his little hillbilly buddies start trying to chase Bert down. Now, Marcy has begun rotting, and we get that gross scene where she's shaving her legs, And That was pretty nasty. Paul, on his little hike, he ends up finding Herman in the reservoir. And it dawns on him. So now he knows where this is all coming from. Of course, the stupid idiot, what was he trying to do? I mean, I see that fucker floating there. I'm just going to be like, I'm going to try to dig it out. What was that? He gets in there. He like turns it over with a big scoop, a big stick thing. And the counterweight, you do know that if you grab something and pull, it's going to pull back. And the counterweight pulls him in. Stupid idiot falls right in there on top of the body. And I'm like, and you were the cute one. So, you know he's fucked. So he gets out completely soaking wet, landed directly on the body, and he ends up going back to the cabin. After he finds the lake, he knows why they're sick, falls in the lake like a retard, which is what I wrote. Mary shaves her leg skin off, which was pretty gross. The dogs she goes back out there to check on Karen, where the dog like rips her to shreds. I'm talking like, but I guess if you have this disease, it's easy to just rip your body parts off, you know, because usually a German Shepherd looking dog isn't going to actually be able to like tear you into pieces. But I suppose, you know, you're barely being held together with this disease. So the dog like rips her all to shreds. Eats Karen too. Paul left after putting Karen out of misery, because Paul comes back and he sees like body parts of Marcy everywhere, and then he sees the dog like eating on Karen, but she's still alive, and like he turns her over, she's got this like Night of the Living Dead face, and he ends up bashing her, you know, to put her out of her misery. Bert gets back to the cabin, and then the locals arrive, and Bert and Paul have come up with a little plan. So they open the door, they blow Bert's head off, which gives Paul the chance to like kill them, which he does. He puts one of the three he puts down in the basement, the other two he kills, and of course Bert's dead, which was no big loss to me. The locals arrive, blow Bert's head off. Paul puts last in the basement and then goes looking for Jeff. On the way, he finds a cave where we see this gross leftover body of Justin. So obviously his dog probably ate him. He ends up finding the locals' truck, where he then hits a deer. The truck dies after he hits the deer. He then comes across Deputy Winston having an underage drinking party just out on Highway number 9. You know, just like outside of town on Highway number 9. We just gather by the road and drink. So he had been sent out there to stop this underage drinking party, but it's Deputy Winston. So he's ready to party, and he's just sitting there having a party with them. A couple of them, you know, when they see Paul all sick, one of them tries to hit him because, you know, a message comes on Winston's radio. We've got them all from the cabin. There's one left. If you see him, shoot him. But Deputy, you know, can't. And one of the other guys, though, tries to attack him, and that was pretty funny. I couldn't figure out at first what was up with the other dude, because like 2 dudes try to attack him, and he bashes one. This one guy tries to hit him with the guitar, but it ends up hitting his friend in the face. And he was making this weird sound, and he fell, you know, because Paul then like knocks the shit out of Deputy Winston and knocks him out, or near unconscious. And the other guy like falls by him and he's still making this weird choking, gagging noise. I had to like rewatch it because I'm like, what happened to that dude? Why is he acting that way? I know he was hit in the face with the guitar, but then I kind of think I realized that he had a harmonica in his mouth. Is that what it was? And it knocked the harmonica down his throat, and so that's what he was like, that weird noise was, and he was choking to death. I was like, oh my God. Okay, I get it. All right, it's okay. So Paul ends up running into a semi, and the semi drops Paul off at the hospital, where he wakes up, and the sheriff and the doctors, this small town hospital, they're like talking to him about where did this disease come from. He can barely, I wish he'd have just told them. He tries to tell them a little bit, and they're like, well, we got to take care of the problem the small town way. So he tells them that they're going to transport him to a bigger city, and you have Deputy Winston taking him off into the patrol car. So you think he's taking him off somewhere, but then again, he's not. He's supposed to kill him, and I'm like, well, you shouldn't have gave that job to Deputy Winston because he's not going to do it. And he didn't do it, actually. So, and then I just gave a spoiler for part 2, didn't I? But, so he takes them out there. He tells them the story. Winston takes him to the next city, or that's where he was supposed to be taking him. Now, the next day, Jeff wakes up, and he goes back to the cabin where, he's not sick. And as he walks around the cabin and sees all the blood and the mayhem and the gore, he knows that he survived, and he kept going, I made it, I made it, I made it. He was so happy that he made it. And then he walks out onto the front porch where the deputies then blow him away, like shoot him 15 times in the chest. So he made it till then. So he's shot by the sheriff's team, and then is it this one we see Paul? We see Paul laying in the river. That the sheriff's team, they shoot that guy in the basement as well, and they burn down the cabins. And then we see Paul laying in the river, and we see a couple of kids filling up an igloo cooler, and right across there is his body, or what we think is his body, laying there. And they're selling lemonade at the general store. So this is like just behind the general store, I guess. So you see the kids selling lemonade. You see the sheriff drinking it. You see, you see that trucker that had picked up Paul to begin with. You see him there. So everybody's drinking the lemonade, and everybody is, hey, buy this lemonade from these poor kids, which we know was from the river. And then we get a redneck bluegrass band playing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and a whole party forms. So you've got this giant redneck party at the store, and that's where the movie ends. So what are my thoughts on it? Well, first of all, okay, I like the movie. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, which was not what I thought I was going to. I thought this was going to be an 8 or 9er because of all the hype in the horror community. So I was let down by this movie. Not enough to dislike it. I laughed. I had fun. It was great. It's a great movie. 7.5 is not a bad score. 2.5 is a bad score, just in case you're wondering. I gave it a 7.5. I liked it a great deal. I will watch it. I liked a lot of the stuff in it. My negatives was the dialogue. The unbalanced nudity. I mean, if he wanted to do everything in a classic way, he should have did that. So, there was unbalanced nudity, which is always a negative to me. The dialogue was absolutely, the juvenile dialogue was absolutely atrocious. It was off-putting. But I liked the story. It wasn't as gory as I thought it was going to be. Maybe I've just seen too many damn zombie movies. But there was a lot of hype around it, is what I'm saying. I thought that it would be like a 9 out of 10, or something. I thought it would be like really. But instead it was just a very enjoyable, very humorous, gross. There was some gross shit that I had to turn away from. It just didn't meet the hype. It came close to the hype, but it didn't meet the hype. But I liked it a great deal. Don't get me wrong. I really liked it. It's a good movie. I'm glad to have the trilogy. And we'll talk about the other two. So yeah, I liked it. I liked it a great deal. It's a good movie. It just didn't quite. I thought it was going to be like spectacular. I didn't expect it to be so Nail Gun Massacre. I'd have probably gave it a higher score. I mean, you gotta pick, right? Either you're going to be Terra Firma, Gutterballs, Nail Gun Massacre, Girlfriend from Hell. Either you're going to be that kind of movie, which can be all of those are masterpieces to me. So they can be masterpieces of that kind, or they can be like really serious, get down horror. But Eli, I think he tried to take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and I don't know. I guess I'm just not as 10 out of 10 on the middle of that. You need to be one or the other. And because in all of those movies, the dialogue is juvenile from hell, but it's all done in a funny way. And this one, it was almost like you believed that the people really were like this. And there was nobody to root for. That was a negative, because I absolutely hated Bert. I hated the townspeople. You didn't see Justin long enough to know what kind of person he was. Jeff was ridiculously, and Paul, I think he was smarter than he was, and he turned out to be kind of like almost as stupid as everybody else. He was still the smartest one of the bunch, though. You might say, well, Jeff was the smartest because he survived, but yet he didn't. And I'm not, he only survived by accident because he was such a hysterical sissy that he ran off into the woods to hide with a couple of 6-packs of beer. So it's not like he survived because of the ingenuity. And I thought that Paul would survive, but then the idiot, reached out there and grabbed a hold of that body, and the counterweight pulled him in. And I'm like, well, that was stupid. I thought you were smarter than that. So it's a great movie, but it had some negatives that pulled it down to a 7.5. I still think it's a classic. I really like it. Why do I feel guilty about having some negatives? I don't know. It's 7.5. It's a great movie. I will definitely be watching it again. I like this trilogy. And yeah, that's Cabin Fever from 2002. I finally got around to seeing it. I felt the same way when recently I watched Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods, Cabin in the Woods. I'd heard about it for fucking 3,000 years. And I finally got around to watching it. I liked it a great deal. So, there's lots of movies I have not seen. Mostly I think I stay in indie territory so much that I don't see the mainstream stuff. But, yeah, finally got around. Cabin Fever, I liked it great. 7.5 out of 10. It didn't live up to the hype in some ways. But in some ways it did live up to the hype. So very good. Cabin Fever. What are your thoughts on Cabin Fever? Do you have your positives, negatives? Really, you are allowed to speak if you would like to. It's okay. But yeah, cabin fever, and I will be back to continue the series in the next video. Love you, miss you, bye. Always remember and never forget, you are a very, very special person. Even if you are not infected with a flesh-eating virus. And I will see you soon. Or I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.